Hey, I'm Dark North, hope you all are doing well. In this video, I will be going over 4 F2P teams for Yae Miko. Keep in mind, this assumes only a C0 Yae Miko. As everyone has a different definition of what is F2P, I am using this word to say that I will be discussing teams involving only 4-star characters. The only 5-star in these teams is Yae Miko alone. I will also not be including Raiden in these team comps. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get 5 stars as F2P, you can in fact get every character in the game as F2P if you get lucky. I also realize that not everyone is going to have these 4 stars that I'm going to talk about, but I feel it's a decent baseline for team building to only use 4 stars, which can be replaced by some 5 stars if you have them. The reason I'm not including Raiden in these team comps is to show that you don't need her to make Yae Miko work. Of course, if you have her, you can and should, in my opinion, use her, as they work really well together and greatly synergize with each other to make a really strong team. So now that that's out of the way, let's take a look at these F2P team comps. First is the Yae Miko Taser team with Fischl, Xingqiu, and Bennett. Fischl basically solves the ER problems of Yae Miko, as she's one of the 2 top-tier electro energy generators in the game. You will also have Electro Resonance, which gives more particles on doing electro reactions. And also, Oz obviously hits very hard and she has very high damage as a sub DPS. She also has a passive that does damage off field when other characters trigger electro reactions. You can also stay on her and auto attack to proc Xingqiu swords, as in this team she is the fastest auto attacker, which is also useful when fighting at range or against enemies that fly. Xingqiu does a lot of damage with his burst off field and also enables electro charge for this team. Bennett gives healing and an attack buff. Replacements for this team would be using a Sucrose for Viridescent Shred, and also the EM buff she gives can actually be fully utilized by Yae Miko's EM scaling on her turrets, and also for increasing electro charge reaction damage. You can use Barbara in place of Xingqiu, though she has no off-field damage at all and has poor off-field Hydra application compared to Xingqiu. She in turn provides healing and with Clamset does at least some damage. You can also use Thrilling Tales on her to buff attack of one of your teammates. You can also just choose to stay on field with her and auto attack to proc electro charge, which is not as good as it is with Xingqiu off field, but it works, and if you have no options, you got no options. If you do decide to use Barbara, you can also replace Bennett with Beidou, as you already have a healer. Beidou energy issues are also mitigated by Fischl being in the team, and with Miko's turrets also generating some particles, you shouldn't have any issues in the energy department with some ER on Beidou. If you do use her without Barbara in the team, you would have no healers, and for Beidou to generate a shield, you need constellations, so there's that. But hey, if you can actually parry consistently and are mechanically skilled, that may not be an issue for you, which would make this team a very high risk, high reward team. You can also use Sayu for Viridescent Shred and healing. You can also use Kujosara for an attack buff and electro crit damage at C6, which is very nice, though a bit awkward to play with in this team in my opinion, but that's maybe just because I'm just bad at the game, so there's that. You can also use Lisa, as she has a passive which allows her to shred enemy defense. Her ult cost shouldn't be too much of a problem with some ER on her, as we have both Fischl and Yae Miko on the team. So now let's move on to the next team. Yae Miko Electro team with Fischl, Beidou, and a Flex. I've already explained what Fischl does for Yae Miko in the Taser team section. You can go to that part, the timestamps are in the description. Beidou with Fischl and Yae Miko on the team with some ER on her should have no energy issues at all, and would greatly increase the damage of the team, especially with constellations and against 2 or more targets. Her C6 also lowers electro res, which is great. The flexes here can be as healers. You can use Bennett, who can heal and give an attack buff to the team. You can use Sayu, who can heal and shred resistance with Viridescent. You can use Barbara, who can stay on field and auto attack to not only proc electro charge but also Beidou burst. She can also obviously heal and can use Thrilling Tales to buff attack of one teammate. The other flex characters leave you with no healers or shielders, so keep that in mind. You can use Xingqiu, who will proc electro charge and does a lot of off-field damage. You can use Kujosara for an attack buff and electro crit damage at C6. And you can use Lisa, whose passive allows her to shred defense, and her ult cost shouldn't be too much of a problem if you build some ER on her, as we have both Fischl and Yae Miko on the team. The next team is Yae Miko Overload team with Xiangling, Bennett, and a Flex. Bennett gives an attack buff to the team and heals, and also generates energy for Xiangling. And Xiangling can snapshot this attack buff from Bennett on her Pyronado, dealing greatly increased damage beyond the duration of the buff. And with Yae Miko, you have an Overload team. With the current Abyss being mostly bosses, the knockback from Overload is not an issue at all. You don't have to also stay on Yae Miko to proc overload unless you go for a full EM build. Whether that's good or not is something that I do not know enough to conclusively say for sure. For the flex, you can use Fischl for more overload procs and electro damage, and to battery Yae Miko. You can also use Sayu for Viridescent Shred and healing. You can use Barbara for healing, and she can hold Thrilling Tales to buff teammates' attack. And you can also just stay on her and auto attack to proc Electro Charge and wave some Xiangling burst hits. You can use Kujosara for an attack buff and electro crit damage at C6. You can use Sucrose for Viridescent Shred and also buff Party Elemental Mastery, which will not only increase overload damage but also increase the damage of Yae Miko's turrets thanks to her EM scaling. You can also stay on Sucrose and auto attack to proc a lot of swirl damage that will hit very hard because you build a lot of EM on Sucrose. You can use Lisa for defense shred with her passive and more overload, but without Fischl in the same team, you do need to build a lot of ER on her to get her burst back every rotation. You can also use Xingqiu, who can proc Wape and Electro Charge and do a lot of damage off field, which will basically make it a national variant. And talking about the national team, the last team on the list is the Yae Miko national team. Now Yae Miko national does work, but realistically you can put any character with the national core, which is Xiangling, Xingqiu and Bennett, and it will mostly work fine because the national core will just carry the team hard, even if there is no synergy. So keep that in mind. Yae Miko provides Electro Charge and Overload to the national team on top of her constant turret electro damage and her burst damage here and there. Apart from that, she does not directly buff or synergize with the national team. And the reason why I say burst damage here and there is because without a second Electro in this team, she will struggle to get her ult back every rotation, unless you go overkill on ER, which in turn will sacrifice the damage of her turrets by a lot, so I would not recommend it. If you want to use Yae Miko's burst, I would recommend using another Electro and build a different team instead of going super high ER on her, as the turrets make up for a majority of her total damage output. I would really only recommend Yae Miko National if you just want to play this team or you have no other options, as other characters will fit into the national team and synergize a lot better and will be a lot easier to play than forcing Yae Miko on it. But at the end of the day, that's just my opinion, and you can just not care and do whatever you want because it's your game. You do what you want to do. And that's the end of this video on some FTP team comps for Yae Miko. If you enjoyed the video, do leave a like, it helps out a lot, and also sub to the channel for more videos like these. If you have any questions or corrections, feel free to leave them down below. I am Dark North, thanks for watching, have a good one.